with Emmy and myself tonight. Hello. Some of you I have met before, but please, drop a hello in the chat. Let us know where you are joining us from tonight. Hello, Donna. Oh, hi, Sammy. Sammy's just coming in. Hello, Peter. Hello, Jamie. Hello, Sarah. Hi, Sue Ann, Monica, Tammy, and Muriel. Nice to see everybody. So as you can see, we've just done this as in a meeting format tonight. So totally up to you if you want to have your, videos on or off, whatever you feel comfortable with. But this is just, it's a quite, nice and intimate event with everybody here. Everyone's still sort of pinging and coming in. So we're just going to give it a couple of minutes and then we will kick off. Nice to see everyone on time as well. Thank you.
I know, you guys are the best. Keen to build that brand. We love it.
Yes. So hopefully everyone's had a great day and you're looking forward to tonight. This is going to be really short and sharp. We're going to give you lots of really great tips and value, but in a really short amount of time. But they're definitely all just things that you can, you can really go off and, I encourage you to like really implement those straight away as well. So for the new, I think ladies, who've just come in and joined us, as I've just said, like we're just doing a meeting format for this tonight. It's nothing too formal, so totally up to you. If you feel comfortable to have your videos on, turn it on. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. You can leave your videos turned off and just listen to us. Hi, Sammy. Lovely to see you. Hope you're well. So it's 7:03. So we do want to stick to time tonight. I want you ladies to get off on time. So we might kick off. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we do, and Emmy, please feel free to add anything to this. But as I mentioned, it's meeting format, video on or off. I'm going to be kicking us off and taking us through some sections. If you've got any questions that come up, during my part, please feel free to pop that in the chat. Depending on what the question is, I'll either answer it at the time or we will absolutely have time at the end to answer questions for you as well. And I hope you get a lot of value out of tonight. And Emmy and I are really looking forward to spending the next sort of 40 minutes together. I don't know if you've got anything that you wanted to add to that, Emmy.
Only that I know we have a few gentlemen registered for the event as well. So rest assured, even though we have lots of wonderful, strong, powerful females here today, we also have a lot of tips for anyone who's looking to build their brand. Yeah. And I've got the recording ticking in the background. So do be aware that we are recording the session and it will be distributed to all of you. And also obviously the people who might miss the live session. So just be aware of that. And I think Lucy mentioned, but put any questions that you have throughout today, either in the chat box. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end. But if you have some burning questions as we're presenting and sharing some tips, we can obviously take some questions throughout. But I think we're ready to go. Over to you, Lucy.
All right, great. Well, hopefully you're all ready to go as well. Let me just kick us off. Hopefully everyone can see that screen now. Can anyone give me a thumbs up? Let me know it's all good. Yep, beautiful. Yeah. All right, so build your professional brand. That is what we are here to teach you about tonight. And this is all really around positioning yourself for career success, and not just career success, this year, but beyond. Because when you've got a strong professional brand, that's really what you're able to do. So you're in the right place here tonight if that is what you're wanting to do. You're actually wanting to build and enhance your professional brand and understand what are some really simple tips and ways that are going to help you do that. It's also, you're in the right place if you want to position yourself strongly. So that means, position yourself strongly in the marketplace where you are the person that, whether it's recognized for a promotion, for a new job role, whatever that is, you are the go-to person. So Hopefully that's a big yes to both of those 2 points for everyone here joining us tonight. And as some of you on this call I have met, and we might have met online, or I might have even worked with some of you, but for a lot of you don't know me. So a quick introduction from me. I'm Lucy, and I'm a personal stylist and image consultant, and I'm the founder of Style Risers. So my business is really about, and I guess the mission for my business is really about helping women rise to fulfill their full potential. And the way that I help them do that is through style. And I really help them understand how to craft and curate a look that, you know, elevates their professional brand, it elevates their presence, and just gives them the confidence that they need in the workplace, but of course, you know, outside of the workplace as well, to really achieve their goals. So this is, absolute passion of mine. I'm very excited to be presenting tonight with Emmy, who we actually connected via LinkedIn. So Emmy's going to be talking about the power of that in a little bit of time. But yeah, you know, I predominantly do work with people on helping them achieve career and, you know, particularly professional goals. So it was a wonderful partnership with Emmy, who is career and transition coach. And I'll pass it over to her to let you know a little bit more about her.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lucy. And to any on the call today who are not following Lucy over on LinkedIn, head over after or during this call and connect with Lucy. She's got so much cool, visual, simple tips that can really help you elevate your style at work for the men and the women, I dare say. So definitely head over and follow her. And yeah, equally excited. So my name is Emmy Peterson. For those of you who don't know me, that is not a typo in my surname. It is double S because I'm Scandinavian originally, but I've lived over here in Australia for 12 years now, and I've been working as a coach for almost 10 years. And my big passion is working with mid-career professionals. When I started out in coaching, I coach kind of wide and broad, but my key niche and where I make the biggest difference is for people who are mid-career, so kind of 35 all the way up to 50, have done something for quite a while, but are feeling really unsure what to do next, or wanting to go for a promotion perhaps, or really level up in their career. So I work mostly with mid-career professionals, both men and women, to really help them find the next stage of their career that really lights them up. Because let's face it, we spend an insane, I saw a stat sometime, we spend about 90,000 hours as an adult working. That's a heck of a lot of hours. And we want to make sure that most of those hours are spent doing something you love. And if you're a data analytics person listening in, do check that stat out, because that actually does not include the commuting or the lunch breaks either. So just a little side fact. So yeah, really excited. And Lucy, I think you're going to start us off tonight with some really good tips from your side of things.
Yes, I am. So you're going to hear from me first, and then I'll hand it over to Amy. To Emmy. So I'm going to start off with a couple of tips around personal appearance and just how to use that to your advantage when it comes to your professional brand. Now, I'm sure everyone has seen and read the memo numerous times about first impressions. We all know they're important, but I want to reiterate a couple of things around this point. And I also want to talk about your last impression, which is something that we often don't necessarily consider or think about. So I guess, the one point that I want to highlight is when we meet someone, there's a whole range of visual clues that, we're sort of tapping into. And it really is like the most obvious, the most apparent thing that anyone is going to be looking at when they meet you, whether that's an interview, whether it's at a networking event, whether they're looking at your profile on LinkedIn, the most obvious, the most apparent thing is your image and your appearance. And, what we tend to do is we tend to kind of focus on someone almost like we would a product or an object. And we kind of, really narrow into and look at how they look and how they sound. So through that process, we are deciding lots of things about someone, and we're just using those visual cues to help us. So we're deciding about your personality, we're deciding about your values, we're deciding about your interests, a whole range of different things. The best part of this is that you're in total control of it. And, sometimes I think this can feel, might be a little bit confronting to think, oh, I've got to make, a great first impression. I've only got this amount of time. But the reality is you can't control the situation around, but you absolutely have 100% control over, your image and your appearance. So there's no one size fits all when it comes to what your professional brand looks like and what's the exact look for that. There's no there's a lot of different factors that play into it. But something that's, some key points that are really important that are going to help you really build a professional brand is clothing that fits you, clothing that matches your personality, and who you say you are. Yeah, so there's a congruency there, and that there's proper attention to the details and to the grooming. And if you're thinking about interviews, that is absolutely something that a lot of interviewers and managers will notice. They will notice the detail. So that's really, really important. When I talk about matching who you say you are, let's say you meet someone at a networking event and they say to you, hey, I'm a plastic surgeon. I work in this, well-renowned kind of exclusive clinic in a really beautiful part of town. But they are dressed in, really kind of scruffy, shabby clothing, maybe look like they've come from a bit of a construction site. There's no congruency there in the impression that they're giving you. So there's no congruency between the visual and the words that they're saying. And that's the same as if you've got a visual presentation that's not aligned with what's on your CV, there's going to be like this mismatch for people. So it's really, really important that the visual cues that you give people through your image, your grooming, your clothing are matching up to what and who you say you are. Okay. And now I just want to touch on last impression, because there's so much, I think, weight given to first impression. And it's true, first impressions are very powerful. We can make them in about 90 seconds, a really positive first impression. It's about all it takes. But we can also destroy a first impression with a really bad last impression. And sometimes that's what people are going to leave with. So make sure that every interaction you have with someone, that, it's always giving them the same sense of clarity about who you are. So if you have one interview, then you've got maybe, a second and a third interview, for example. We always want to make sure that the people are getting the same sense of clarity, sense of professionalism, sense of authenticity about who we are at every single touch point, and just making sure we're leaving them with a really well-rounded impression of us, not just the first one, but it's all those little touch points after that that is going to contribute to building your professional brand. So I hope that has given some clarity for everyone. I'm going to move on to the next point now. If you've got any questions or comments or anything that's come up, please pop them into the chat. The next sort of tip I want to touch on is actually packaging up your personal brand. So I've got two questions up there on the screen. Feel free to screenshot those, because they're actually questions that if you haven't considered these, or even if you have considered them before, it's a new year and it's always a good time to refresh yourself on this. I can see Emmy's putting her thumbs up there. So yes, like this is something that, you might want to actually do this annually. is to think about, you want to think about dressing in terms of a purpose, right? Your clothing is a tool, your style is a tool that we can use to our advantage. So if we're conscious in what we're selecting to wear, what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's going to link back to our goals, and it's going to link back to how we would like to be perceived. Now, if you don't know the answers to those questions, then where you can be choosing clothes that aren't going to align to that. So be purposeful about what you wear, and the way to do that is to get clear on those two questions. So I'll give you an example here. Let's say your goal is you would like to be internally promoted, let's say in 2023, and you want to make sure that you are seen favorably for that promotion, and that you're ready for that next step. So that's quite a common one that I would often hear from clients. They want to make sure that they are going to be in the running, and they're going to be positioned very favorably to get that promotion. So one of the first things that you might want to do around this is to actually have a look at, well, how are people dressing at that level in the organization? And, like the second question I've got there as well, how do you want to be perceived? So it might be, you'd like to be perceived as competent, like to be perceived as capable. Maybe you'd like to be perceived as approachable, and showing others that you're a team leader, you're a team player, and that, you can get along really well with people. All of those attributes and characteristics, we can match those up to clothing through colors, through color contrast, through styles, through silhouettes. This is where we can start to get really strategic about actually packaging your brand up in a way that is consistent with your goals. But you need to know what those goals are first, and you need to know how you want to be perceived first. In that example that I just gave, my recommendation is always to dress to the level that you want to be promoted to. And often that's a step up from what people are dressing now, and have a look at how people at that level present. And often what you might find is that they're well put together. There's attention to grooming. Their clothes, they fit into the overall culture, but they also perhaps, they might also stand out in a way that is authentic, and just a step up in terms of their level of professionalism. So if that's your goal, if that was one of your goals, to be sort of internally promoted, look up and dress a level up. Okay, I'm going to get into.
Oh, we have a really good question, Lucy, that I actually think is super valuable. So Donna, thanks for your question. How do you dress like the level you want to be if there are no women to role model? I think that's a great question. Thanks, Donna.
That is a great question, Donna. So if there's no women in your particular organization, I would look outwards in another organization, or I don't know if you've got a mentor or someone that you look up to, and have a look at how they're dressing. You want to make sure that you are still in a way that is appropriate for your organization. So that might require a little bit of just kind of digging and so forth. But I would actually look outside, Donna, and have a look if there is a type of sort of organization and environment that is similar to where you are, and how are females dressing in that sort of industry. And I think, Donna, I don't know if you want to put any more information in there about what is the type of organization or even industry you're in, because that might also give me a bit more info, and I can give you a little bit more like specific advice towards that. But I think at the end of the day, you always want to be making sure that, your clothes, there's harmony in your outfit, you're well put together, there's a good level of grooming. And, sometimes you can look at, I suppose, what is the dress sort of level of the men, and what would be the equivalent female to that. That is another way that you could you'd also sort of be able to figure it out. But it is a bit hard. It is a bit trickier when it comes to females. There's just a lot more options, but that's a really, really good question, Donna. Okay, so I'm going to move on and look at the last point that we've got. And so the first 2 points that I've covered are really about the external, or how our personal appearance and image is going to impact how others see us. But the other really important thing to understand and to keep in mind is just how much your clothing and your grooming affect the way you feel. And not only the way you feel, but the way you think, the way you behave. And there's lots of studies that have been done around this that really do show how much it actually affects us. For me, I think the most compelling example that I would see of this is when I go shopping with a client, and, I might be giving them, maybe it's a pair of jeans and they've never been able to find a pair of jeans that fits and flatters them. And the change that happens in an instant when they put something on. So their whole demeanor will change. It might be they're trying on a different color. It might be they're trying on a different style for the first time. And that really acts as a signal to yourself. Like, your clothes actually do really have a profound impact on the way that we feel. And, I've got a statistic up there, which was from a study that showed, the vast majority of people do actually dress up to feel confident. So they are intrinsically motivated, first and foremost, to dress up. That confidence then leads to, rewards in the external world. It's a very positive loop that happens. But, it's a very fast, it's a very effective way to boost your confidence when you do actually put on an outfit that you feel absolutely amazing in. So one thing that I like to recommend is to have a range of power outfits. So this might be, at least one, but, it might be up to three. Three is a good number. And these are outfits that you can just put on, and that when you wear them, you feel your absolute best. They represent you. They, are aligned with your brand and what you want to say. They fit and flatter you really well. You basically could just walk out the door like looking and feeling like $1 million in those outfits. So, make sure like you've got a couple of go-to power outfits of those. You're going to pull those out when you've got meetings, presentations, or anything like that, anything important. And you're not scrambling at the last minute thinking, oh my God, I've got this important presentation. I have no idea what to wear. Make sure you've got a couple of just go-to power outfits, as I like to call them, and it just gets rid of any of that niggling doubt or some of that self-talk that can sometimes come into play when we're thinking, gosh, have I worn the right thing? Is this appropriate for this event? I don't know. When you feel confident in your clothing, it does impact your performance, and it really does impact how you can show up. So that is everything from me tonight, and I hope those tips have really helped you when it comes to building your professional brand through your personal appearance and image. And I am going to pass it over to Emmy now, who's going to talk to us all about tips with your professional profile, networking, and so forth. So over to
Thanks
Emmy.
so much, Lucy. And I wanted to briefly say about this slide you've got up here, the thing that came up for me, I had the pleasure of working with a professional stylist a long time ago when I was in a very different role. And I noticed that some of the power outfits that I had, or the confidence outfits that I had from that time, I got to a certain point in my career where I had to kind of change what those were, because my role was different and my level of influence was different. But I really agree with you, like having something that you feel $1 million in, it doesn't really matter what you're going to go and do, right? You're just going to feel great, except maybe, I don't know, maybe don't garden in your power outfit. No, for sure. So yeah, let's hop over to the next slide. So I'm going to share with you 3, I guess, key areas to really elevate your professional brand, in addition to the beautiful things that Lucy's already shared. So the first thing is to get around the headspace that you are much better off working to your strengths rather than trying to fundamentally change your strengths. What I mean by that is, of course, you're going to learn new skills. We're going to look at that in just a second. But doubling down on the things that you are naturally really good at and letting them lead your brand, whilst adding skills and stuff along the way, you are more congruent. And I dare say as well, with what Lucy went through, you'll probably feel more comfortable in your style as well. So a really quick, I guess, distinction between what's a skill and what's a strength, Emmy. A strength is basically more of an attribute of the type of person that you are. And for the vast majority of people, a skill can turn into a strength if it's something you've done for a really long time. But typically it's something that you're naturally good at and that you didn't have to work particularly hard to learn in the first place. You may have spent time fine-tuning it. But a lot of times strengths are kind of character traits, if you will. So it could be things like you're a really curious and creative person, being really organized, being quite punctual. Things like that tend to be strengths. And I think it goes without saying that being the right fit for the company is very much based on your strengths. So that's how the company or the organization can know that you are a good personality and strength fit for the type of area that you're passionate about. And strengths are cross-transferable across many different things. We talk a lot about cross-transferable skills, but strengths come in so many different forms. The same strengths that really helped me build my corporate career when I was back in marketing and sales and project management roles, I have always been a very organized person, and that is a strength that I took with me when I started my own business. So I trust that kind of makes sense what a strength is. A skill is more around the specific value that you add to a role or organization. So it's usually as well something that you can learn and master through repetition. So things like, I know that I read a stat somewhere that, fear of presenting in front of a group sometimes scores higher than the fear of dying, which I think is a little bit sad, but whatever, it might be true, it might not be true. But a skill is essentially the things that you've learned along the way in your career. So it could be presentation skills, specific programs that you use in the industry that you're in or the industries you have been in, and that kind of things, business planning tools. Some people, I had this question a few times about, is being a good leader or a good manager a strength or a skill? And the answer is it can actually be a little bit of both. A lot of people learn management skills. Very few people are born a natural manager because you need a range of skills to be a good leader or a good manager. But for most people, it's a skill that they learn over time, even though some people will have more or less natural, tendencies to do so. So really doubling down on your strengths and not worrying too much about the things you're less good at. For example, a strength of mine, I am not a detail-oriented person. So I will never be the Excel spreadsheet guru, but I am totally okay with that. And I lean on other strengths instead and collaborate with the right people. So that's essentially that one. Let's hop over to the next one. And any questions that you have as we're talking, I have a few actually that a few people have submitted who couldn't make it to the live call. So we're going to cover some of them as well in the Q&A. So when you know what your strengths and your skills are, and you can start that super simply, by the way, on the previous slide there, you can literally just have a skills tab and a strengths tab and just write down things like, what have people said to me that I'm really good at? Go get some feedback from people close to you. It could be your friends, family member, colleague. If you're a student, it could even be someone who studies with you, and go say, hey, what are 3 things that you think I'm really good at? And try yourself to see if they probably fit into the skill or the strength category. Next up, you want to take those skills and your strengths to polish your professional profile. Lucy and I actually did meet on LinkedIn. Gosh, I think it's more than a year ago now or something, Lucy, but I saw one of her posts that I thought was just brilliant. And I reached out to her with a message and we've stayed connected ever since. And LinkedIn is one of those things. If you're on the call today, you probably have a LinkedIn profile. Many people don't use it all that often. They tell me all the time, oh, I'm not on LinkedIn that much. We'll talk more about that on the networking slide next. But essentially, your professional profile, in addition to the way you visually present yourself, like Lucy said, is how do you talk about yourself? How do you present yourself verbally and visually on your LinkedIn page? Same goes for your CVs, and I've put a little bracket there, CVs plural, because for most people, especially if you're listening in and you're thinking, Emmy, I really want to pivot from this work I've been doing over here to something quite different, then you will need probably more than one CV. And what I mean by that is having a general CV of a more general nature and or tailored towards where you're looking to go is really, really useful. So for example, when I started my coaching business, I had one CV that was tailored to marketing and communications roles, which is what I was doing at the time. And I had another CV that was more focused on training, coaching, and facilitation. I still included my past roles. I didn't hide any roles and things like that, but they were curated in very different ways and spoke about each of those roles and pulled out different achievements and different value that I would add to organizations through those two lenses. So if you are in a career pivot type space in your life, that can be really, really good to start by branching out and even just creating a more generic CV than your specialized one can be a good place to start. There's a lot of information, by the way, on like how you can set up your LinkedIn profile, but as a bare minimum, remember that your LinkedIn profile belongs to you, not your company, not your boss, not anybody else. Your LinkedIn profile is your professional window. And I dare say, and Lucy would probably agree, recruiters look a lot at LinkedIn. So if you're not congruently presenting the information in the CV, if that's not what they're going to find on LinkedIn, and there's a huge discrepancy, they might get a bit confused as to, is this actually the right person that I'm looking up?
And I'd just add in there, like a profile photo is so important. It doesn't have to be professional, you know, a professional photo, but it does need to be an up-to-date photo, not a 20-year-old, you know, photo.
Yes.
Good lighting. There's no one else in the photo with you. It's
no sunglasses, please.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
that you are presenting yourself as a professional, and that it's when someone gets a feel and a sense of who you are.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Quite often when I work with clients, I say, look, just get a friend or a family member to take a photo of you against a white wall, nice open smile, cropped in around your face so that you can perhaps see the shirt collar or something like that a little bit as well. And that's a great point, Lucy. And I think that also segues into what I often call the Google search test. So if you haven't Googled your own name, especially if you have an unusual surname, like in my case, the spelling of my name is quite unusual over here in Australia. So think about it from a recruiter's perspective, or someone who may want you to come and work for them, right? They're probably going to look you up online. And it's really important to be aware what comes up if someone would Google you. I'm not saying that you need to be paranoid about every single thing or a holiday photo or anything like that. All I mean is that you want to make sure that the vast majority of what they see is really positive. So, for example, if you are doing any volunteering or something like that, is that listed or does that come up if someone was to look you up? So it can be a good thing, and I bet all of you are freaking out now and Googling yourself. Please don't worry about it. It's not a big deal, but it's a good indication of what your online professional profile might look like to someone who hasn't had the pleasure of meeting you in person. So really just curating that and making sure that any images and things like that, like Lucy said, are really as professional as they can look, and they don't need to be taken by a photographer.
This is kind of the first impression. Sorry, just to jump in. Like, this is the first impression now that someone's actually going to get of you. It's what they see on your LinkedIn profile. They do that Google search.
Yeah, absolutely. So being mindful of it and curating what that looks like, you know, even if you say, for example, if you wanted to get into creative writing and you're doing something totally different right now, if you, for example, had a personal blog that really highlighted your creative writing skills, make sure that your name is listed somewhere on the About page so that search engines could pick up that, oh, this person is doing creative writing, or, you know, and it can even help enhance other things. If you're in any kind of a creative field, to use that example, they might go, oh, this is really cool. So she blogs in her spare time and this and that. What a cool person. And again, it adds up to your credibility, whether they have had a chance to meet you or not. And I guess that segues a little bit to the very last slide, but on this point, your reputation is actually a big, broad thing, right? So your reputation is basically, how do people think of you in the professional world? Are you easy to work with? Have you delivered great results? In my case, I changed industries several times. I did marketing roles for several different types of companies. But I think when your reputation comes with you, and some of that obviously comes from your references when you get a new role, but just have a broad think about this, especially like Lucy said at the start, if you're looking to change jobs this year, be really mindful, not self-critical, but be mindful of how you have positioned and planted the seeds for your reputation to grow. And that brings me to my very final point, which is networking. I know this is a term some people are like, oh gosh, Emmy, how do we even do that? You know, pandemics aside and everything. I always say wherever you're starting from is totally fine. The goal here is to scale it up, and maybe, who knows, you might be lucky to find yourself a Lucy on LinkedIn like I did, because it was amazing. The thing I would say when it comes to networking is try to connect with a clear why, meaning be clear in your mind's eye. And I put a post up on LinkedIn about this recently. No one would walk around throwing their business card in people's face as you go around the shopping mall or the supermarket and hoping that someone's going to catch your business card and be like, oh, this Emmy sounds like a great lady. I'll connect with her online. And the thing is, it's interesting because a lot of people, and I've seen this increase in the last 12 months where people send connection requests without actually explaining why they're reaching out to you. And this is a really great lesson, especially to polish your professional brand. Always reach out with a reason. It can be as simple as, hey, I saw your post on this topic about personal branding. I really liked your second point there. I'd love to stay connected here on LinkedIn so I can follow your content. Now, you may or may not get them to accept the connection request, but you can follow people as well, which is really cool. So you have a lot of opportunity to build your networks without necessarily asking for a job, and just really building your network so that you can expand and find out about opportunities that are coming up. A few people you probably do want to connect with is your biggest champions to date. What I mean by that is, who was that professor at uni or a manager that you had and lost touch with, or someone that you worked with and really absolutely loved working with, and they probably saw some of the best of you as well. So make sure that you are connected with those people. LinkedIn is a beautiful gift where most people, some councils and professional sectors are less active on LinkedIn, but most corporate organizations are. So make sure that you reach out to those people again and just start a conversation, even if it's as simple as, hey, I'm so sorry we lost touch. I'd love to hear where you're at and what's going on in your world. The second motive for that can also be that you can actually ask for endorsements and connection tips on LinkedIn. So if there is a particular person in your past that you really like, you like what they're about, you like the content that they share, etc., you can actually get them to either endorse you for a skill on LinkedIn. Like, you know, I could say, hey, I'm really trying to build my communication skills part of my LinkedIn. Would you mind endorsing me for the skills that you're comfortable to? And that can help build your profile. But they can also give you advice on who else you should be connecting with, who might be a good contact for you. I often look at new people you want to connect with. Quite funnily, the quickest way to do this is if you follow someone on LinkedIn or you're connected to someone. So hypothetically, I see Lucy's post and I see, hypothetically, James is always posting on Lucy's posts, and I really like what James has to say. What a great opportunity for me to hop over and connect with that person or follow him, and then subsequently my network will grow. And the last and final point on this is that you can also find potential mentors this way. You probably wouldn't go around and be like, hey, we've never met, would you like to be my mentor? But you can connect with people with that why in mind, that I would love to attract a really cool person in this industry of this age group that can show me the ropes and help me build my career. So I know there's a lot to say about networking, but that would be some of my quickest tips for you to really scale it up, whatever baseline you're starting from right now. Cool. So, Lucy, shall I wrap this one up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. And we've got a great question that's come through from Peter.
Yeah.
So we might wrap it up and
Yeah.
then we will go into Q&A, Peter, and Emmy can answer
Yeah.
that question for you that's come through.
I would really recommend, you're all going to get the recording of this, but if you wanted an overview of what we've been talking about today, feel free to take a screenshot of this slide, because as you can tell, all the 6 points that we've covered, they really do add to your professional profile. And you don't have to do all 6 of these every single day. But if you use this little flywheel as a kind of a guideline on any given week or something like that, you can be like, oh yeah, you know, I haven't really got my power outfit. That could be my focus this week. Or yeah, my CV really isn't up to date. That's going to be my focus next week. So don't overwhelm yourself, but just use it as a helpful guide as to how your brand is looking and feeling.
And this can be something that, you know, it might be something that you work on, you know, as Emmy said, don't get overwhelmed, but that you might just work on these 6 steps. You know, maybe you give yourself a couple of months, you know, maybe month 1, you're working on your CV and your LinkedIn profile. And then, you know, month 2, you're thinking about that, you know, packaging your brand and so forth. But, you know, these all really do play in and tie into each other, and they're all going to elevate your professional brand when they're in harmony.
Absolutely.
Great. So do you want to do this?
Yeah, so before we hop over to Q&A, we wanted to share this with you as well. As you can probably appreciate, Lucy and I have similar but slightly different ways that we help people, but we're both very, very passionate about people having a strong professional brand and working in a place that they love, looking the way they love to look and feel as well. So we both offer free discovery calls, which is a complimentary confidential session, confidential conversation about your circumstances. You will get an email tomorrow morning. If you don't see it in your inbox by lunchtime, please check your spam or junk folders. Sometimes Gmail gets a bit naughty and hides emails. But if you wanted to book a free discovery call with me, you can head over to my website. Right at the top, there's a button where you can book in. And there will also be links to book with both of us in that email. And Lucy is even more tech savvy, so you can just scan that QR code that you're seeing on the screen right now, and the link will come up of where you can book a call with Lucy. But both of these links, like I said, will be in that email along with the recording that's coming your way tomorrow morning.
Fantastic. All right, so let's head into the Q&A. So Emmy, we've got one from you that's come through from Peter, asking about how do I add a role on my CV from 15 years ago that are relevant for a role I want to apply for, where I want to go as from my experience from 2006 to current day, and it's hard to explain on a 2-page CV.
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, a CV doesn't have to be 2 pages. I know there was a rule at some point where people are like, it can't be more than 2 pages. It can. You just want to make sure that every word and every experience on the CV is telling a story for the thing you're going for. So I quite often recommend, as a minor side note on CVs, that you have a master CV that literally has, could be a Word document or something not very pretty, that has every single role you've ever had, including the skills and the strengths that you used in that role and the outcomes and results that you generated while you were in that role. So to answer your question more specifically, as long as it chronologically fits in your CV, I say there are times when you might leave a short role or a short contract you did that's not particularly relevant. You can leave that out of your CV. Excuse me. But the general rule of thumb is that you want to tell a story through your working history. And for that particular role, you're saying 15 years ago, so I'm assuming you've done quite a few different roles, and I'd be happy to have a chat offline about your particular circumstance if that's more helpful. But generally speaking, there's nothing wrong with having things that go quite far back. And I have seen quite a few CVs lately that are 3, sometimes even 4 pages. So there's nothing wrong with going a little bit over the 2 pages and bringing that role in if you need to. The other alternative is to shorten the description of less relevant roles that you've done more recently and just have a year, a blurb, a title, and some of the key highlights of that role. So let's say hypothetically you'd take a newer role from 10 points to 3, so that there is room to explore this role that you would like to include that has more relevant experience. So I trust that that kind of answers your question, but like I'd be more than happy, like I said, to explore that in a one-on-one call if you like. But don't be afraid to go a little bit over 2 pages on your CV, as long as it's all relevant and telling the story about why you're a good fit for the role you're applying for now.
Thank you. I just paid money to have it done, and I was told it had to be under 2 pages, and then I summarized all my previous experience, and yeah, I clearly need to do an overhaul. So
yeah, no, thank you for clarifying that. 2 pages is a good guideline because it really forces us, and I know a lot of CV consultants now are trying to keep it under 2 pages, which is great if you can, but it can be hard to kind of rectify that. So if you are getting some help with it, I would also say to them, what part of my other experience would you recommend that I shorten to really bring the point home and bring this role in? But there's usually a way with some clever fonts and sizes and bullet points. So good luck with it. And yeah, definitely reach out if you need more help.
I definitely will be, because I'm changing careers. So yeah, definitely would love to pick your brain. Thank you.
Wonderful.
So I think we've got something in there from Rita Sharma. So thank you. So recommendations for image consultants. That's my background as well, Rita. So happy to have a chat with you if you want to book in a call. That's I cover all of those sort of aspects. I know you've got a question there about how to display maternity leave on LinkedIn, which that's one for Emmy.
Yeah, look, I think there's different ways of doing that. I have seen if people are on maternity leave and that you are literally on maternity leave for a particular role, you can literally leave it as it is. So let's say hypothetically you are currently on maternity leave and you've been in that role for 2 years, but the last 6 months you've spent on maternity leave, for example. You can definitely list that in your by the way, for anyone who needs to hop off, feel free to go, and we are very, very grateful that you spent this time with us today, but we're going to keep going with the Q&A as long as you guys have questions. So for those who have to go, we loved seeing you here. Back to the maternity leave comment. Yeah, so I have seen people listed in several different ways. You can either have it as a career gap if it was kind of came between 2 roles. So you could say, maternity leave, or, extended career break to be with my family, whatever language you wanted to use. So that can literally be a line item in your CV as well as on your LinkedIn. Or if it was during the time where you were in a particular role or particular company, you can just have a comment in the description. So company A, your title when you started, and you can make a reference if you like, maternity leave between month and year X and month and year Y. So there are a few different schools of thought on this one. So it's really just about what you feel the most comfortable with. I also noticed Rita asked, are Udemy certified courses accepted in the market? Look, they won't be accepted as an accreditation. However, I think any learning that you've done or any courses that you've taken, hypothetically, if you're in marketing and you've upskilled and taken a HubSpot course about customer relationship systems, list that anyway as skills and accreditations, but it's not going to be possibly as highly regarded by some as a diploma or something. However, I dare say it says a lot about you and your brand and you as a person that you have gone and learnt about Adobe or whatever system you've immersed yourself in. So I think it says a lot about your character, which is a really important part of your professional brand. Wonderful. I had another question. Do you see any other ones there, Lucy? Otherwise, I had one from
everything.
Yeah,
unless
so we had
anyone else has got anything else to add.
We had one question from someone who I know will be watching the recording. So thank you for sending this question in beforehand. Lucy, I think this one is for the both of us. And the question is, how do I show my workplace that I'm interested in a promotion? This is a good question. I know this has come from a woman, but not that that matters. I think this question is a universal one. What are your thoughts on this one, Lucy?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think this kind of goes back to one of the points that I was talking about around like, what are your goals and how do you want to be perceived? So if you're going for, a promotion, you absolutely want to make sure that you are seen as, I guess, competent and capable to make that next step. And that's why it's really important to have a look at how are people dressing when they are at that next step, because if you visually look like that, as I said, like the image is the most obvious thing that people are going to see, and they're going to deduct from the way that you're dressing that you're ready to take that next step and you're ready to be in that position. So this varies by industry, about what that next level looks like. So have a really good look around and dress a level up from where you are currently. So, you want to also have a think about where do you sort of fit into now, the dress code. And then, I would absolutely, look up to that level that you want to go to. In really casual environments, and some executive teams now, depending on the industry, like they can be dressing really casual. This is something that sort of women, I think, sometimes will just have, can be really tricky balance to kind of navigate that. So my recommendation around that is to really focus on making sure that you are polished, put together, and well groomed, because that is what really sets you apart when you are sort of dressing more casually clothes. You don't want to look like casual for the weekend. You still want to look like you're casual for work, and that means that your overall look is polished and professional. So I hope that's helped and given you some clarity.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think the things I would add from, I guess, more of a career coaching or a career positioning perspective, in addition to the way you present yourself, is there's two sides to promotion. So I talked before about having internal champions. We're not always fortunate that our immediate leader or our immediate team is our biggest champion. And that probably more often than not has nothing to do with you and everything to do with either them or the company you work for. But there's two sides to showing that you want a promotion. One is to talk about it and mention it. Almost every company has performance reviews, half-year check-ins, annual check-ins, weekly catch-ups with your boss. So talk about it, and wherever possible, try to even document it in whatever format the performance review is held in. Almost every larger company that I've worked in have had some kind of a performance review, and they will have where they list, where would you like to go next? It's probably no surprise to anyone listening that, we're living in a time now where talent acquisition, aka hiring great people, is challenging. And I know a lot of companies struggle with this. So you speaking up and saying, hey, I really love what I've been doing for the last 2 years. I feel like I've really grown some skills in X, Y, and Z. I'm really interested in having a conversation, even if you don't know exactly what it is. I'm interested in having a conversation, what a natural next step might be for me. And that's really them nurturing you and your talent inside the company, which will essentially save them money as well, right? Because if you're a good fit and they can promote you, that actually, keeps everything flowing really well. So try to get it documented and try to articulate as best as you can. And if you don't know, say, hey, manager X, I don't know what the next natural step would be in the organization. What are some of the roles and some of the teams I might want to explore? This doesn't mean that you're unhappy and you're leaving tomorrow. It means that you want to stay and grow, and that's a valuable thing for the company. The other side of it, and I've experienced this firsthand, if you have a leader that's not particularly supportive and it's in their greatest interest that you stay right where you are, because if you leave and they have to backfill you, that creates a whole lot of things for them. So what you can do in a really respectful way is to start having informal coffee chats or Zoom chats or catch-ups with other departments with the proviso that you want to learn more about how the company works and how the different teams work. So it could be as simple as setting up a 15-minute coffee chat over Zoom with someone who's in a different team that you're interested to learn more about. You're not telling them that that's where you're going to go, but you're starting to do a bit more networking inside the company
Mm.
to learn a bit more about what they do over, hypothetically, if you're in marketing and you really want to get into product, that's a very different arm of the business, and it could be really useful to go and explore that. Some places will be open to doing kind of a work swap internally. So you might be able to actually say, look, I would love to just spend 3 hours a week working with the team over there and learning a bit more. You will know which bit is right for your organization. And the final thing I will say, if you are going for an internal promotion, try to get people to back you, and don't try to not make it a surprise to your current manager, because the first person that will probably be asked about your application internally will be your current leader. So if that comes as a complete surprise to them, it may impact your professional image that you've worked really hard to build up in a negative way. I know it's not always possible, but wherever possible, try to bring your boss along on the journey with you and sell it as a really positive thing to the company. So that would be, in a nutshell, my tips around to position yourself for a promotion.
Great.
We've had
Well,
a few people drop off. Any final questions or reflections? This has been so much fun, Lucy. What a great crowd.
yeah, it's been great and really great questions. And I hope, that you've got some actionable tips that you can actually go off and implement and set yourself up for that career success this year. So big thank you to everyone for joining and
Absolutely.
asking questions and interacting. It's been really
Been
great.
awesome. And any questions you would like us to answer in future events, send us a message, ping us on LinkedIn, let us know, because we're here to help you guys and make sure that your career is as good as it could possibly be. So thanks again for hanging out with us.
Thanks, everybody. And if we're not connected on LinkedIn, send us a connection request. And we might do this in future. It was great seeing everyone tonight. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely evening.